Coming up on today's episode, Stuart Armstrong joins me as we talk about the last 13 years of Darlington fan ownership and relive some of the good times that have occurred in them years. I'm joined today by Stuart Armstrong, who works for Darlington Fans Radio. Stuart, how are we doing?
Doing well, Joe. Looking forward to chatting.
Right, so let's rewind the clock a bit then, back to 2012 when the club had to be reborn as Darlington 1883. Lots happened since then, hasn't it?
Awful lot's happened. Lot's happened since then.
So do you remember those early days of the club being refounded, sort of the days in the Northern League and everything that happened back then with Martin Gray coming in?
I remember them very well. I mean, the period that preceded that was pretty frantic, pretty stressful. We weren't sure whether we would still have the club, what level the club would be at, whether anybody would have come in and saved it in the previous guise at the previous stadium. There was a lot of activity around making sure that we could keep something alive. So I remember it very well. And then so I remember the very first pre-season friendly that we had. I remember the first ever game in the Northern League, which was a sellout at Heritage Park. And that whole season really. And it did change the kind of fabric of the club, how it ran, who it was run by, who it was run for. So I remember it very well.
So those first games then, go on, what was the first friendly played under the new club's name?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I'm intrigued now.
No, I knew you were going to ask me that. And to be honest, I can't remember who the opponent was. I can't remember the score. I can't remember what team we had out. But what I do remember is the emotion around, we're going to continue here, and people are going to be interested enough to make it feasible. So, for example, the thing I remember about it is, you're rocking up and you're not sure. You're playing at a new ground. Technically, it's a new everything, new management, new ownership, new players, new kit. And you think, well, look, until we get there on that day for the first friendly, is there going to be anybody interested? Is it going to be a dozen of us? Or are we going to be able to retain some of the fans? Is it going to be the same fans? Is it going to be a new group of fans, and we're going to lose the continuity of people who supported Darlington for all of those years? But we got there, and the bit that I remember is it was just really pretty much like the old days. It was the same people, it was the same fans, it was the same crack, it was the same faces around the place.
Yeah.
And that gave a great sense of continuity, because even though you've never been through that before, so you just don't know whether everyone's going to give up or whether everyone's going to stick around and go for it. And it was the latter, thankfully. So even though it was a new level, it was the same experience, really.
So that first season then under the new club, a record-breaking season, you could say. 122 points, 145 goals scored. The emotions, like you say, were all there. So that goes back up to Tier 8, and it was quite emphatic, really. And sort of, what was the feeling around Martin Gray when he first came back to Darlington?
Well, he was a known quantity, in the sense that he'd been a player before. He was a competitive player. He was a wind-up merchant. He was extremely competitive, extremely driven, and in those early days, he was a perfect fit for the club because you needed that level of desire and hunger and determination to get the club back on its feet again. And Martin, I think I wasn't really particularly close at that stage, but I think he was able to pick the kind of football side of the club up, the playing side of the club up himself. And drive it on. So he was able to do his recruitment. He worked with a guy called Harry Dunn, who was a local scout that recruited really fast, and he instilled into that squad a real ambition. He told them, I think, in pre-season that they would win the Northern League this year, and everyone, I think the playing staff, we heard afterwards, chuckled a little bit. They didn't think that would be possible, but he did. So for the moment in time that Darlington were in, they needed somebody who could, grab hold of the football side of the business and start from scratch with a level of determination and ambition, and that's what he did. And it was a memorable season. I can't remember. You probably just said it there. The amount of points that we got. Did you say it was 121 or something? It was
122. Yeah.
122. I mean, ridiculous. I remember we won the first few games. The first game of that season was an away game against Bishop Auckland, but it was obviously a ground share, so it was a home game. It sold out. You couldn't get a ticket. There was people looking over the fence, and it was a close game. We won it in the end. I think we won it 3-1, if memory serves, or something like that. But it was a close game. It was a great day for the football club. And you got to remember that we weren't really in the dying embers of the old club. We weren't getting any bigger crowd than that anyway. So to see these young, local, very accessible players all of a sudden, who would finish the game and all come up in the bar, have a pint afterwards, was completely different to what we'd experienced before, and allowed a real close connection between the fans and the players, which I don't think we'll ever get back again to that level. You know, the guys all lived within half an hour or an hour of the ground. They were all part-time. They all had never played in front of crowds like that before, pretty much. And it was a really special season.
I mean, touching on then that relationship between sort of the players and the fans, do you think maybe the fact that the club's also fan-owned, do you reckon that probably played a part in sort of that close relationship as well, with sort of players obviously who may know, like people who are on the board or stuff like that coming in and sort of having that close relationship already with some fans? They're now developing the relationship with the fans further at the time.
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah. And I think it was just so exciting for everybody as well. I mean, it was exciting for the fans and as to have this new start that, you know, especially, I mean, I think part of the context for it is the fear and nervousness about losing the club altogether just made everyone appreciate it again, I think. But yeah, it's on the closeness of the fans and the players. I mean, you know, they were, what step is that? Is that step 6 or step 7? I don't even know what step it is.
It'll be step 7, I think.
So it's a long ways down, and those guys, you know, Northern League footballers, if you look at your average Northern League average attendance, it's probably, I'm not even sure it'd be a couple of hundred. And all of a sudden, that first game of the season, we got 2001 or 2004, whatever it is, and they were being, you know, being asked to sign for autographs. They were asking for photos with kids. You know, like, and these guys were playing at a level that many of them have played at before. But with the kind of experience of playing for a relatively big club. So they loved it. It was a moment in time, I'm sure, for many of them that they'll never repeat again. And yeah, it was an exciting and thrilling time, competitive on the pitch. But you know, you'd have the situation where, you know, your captain, you know, you'd be cheering him on the Saturday, and he'd be coming around servicing your boiler on the Monday. You know, it was super close.
I mean, yeah, you don't find that anywhere really, do you? It's the magic of sort of non-league and something you wouldn't see anywhere else, and it's sort of what makes non-league football such an entertaining principle, that you see these just ordinary people playing, and you're celebrating all these ordinary people playing rather than sort of people who are making hundreds of £1,000s a month and having flashy cars and stuff.
Exactly. I've got a great memory of that season, which is after we'd won the league. The club had put on a celebration evening in the Central Hall in Dolphin Centre. Yeah. All the players were there. All the playing staff and coaches were there. Loads of fans were there. I've got a still picture of you know, players and fans queuing in the same. You know, everyone just queuing for a drink. The mayor's in that photograph halfway through, so there was no special. You know, he was having to queue for a beer the same as everybody else. And it was one big group celebrating. You know, it wasn't a table of players separated from fans. It was everyone together. We all went around the town together afterwards, about 150 people.
Crikey.
You know, all the same group. So yeah, happy days, happy memories.
It sounds amazing, to be fair. That so let's just on the following 3 seasons. I'm going to touch on it once here. Season after, second place finish, but losing the playoff to Ramsbottom.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of that playoff venture?
Yeah, I missed the playoff final. It was Ramsbottom. It was the two managers, Anthony Johnson, Bernard Morley, who we crossed paths with many times over the next few years after they went to Salford. And there was a significant event in that. Two very good teams. There was, after about 10 seconds, there was a really bad challenge on Leon Scott, who was the sort of midfield dynamo at the time. Really badly damaged him. I think it might have broken his ankle or something like that. It looked to everyone like a straight red card, and the referee didn't give it. And from that moment, that evening in that playoff final, turned so early, really, because I think the game just got out of control at that point. And Ramsbottom were a very good team at the time, went on to win, but that was a big blow for Darlington. Maybe in hindsight it would have been a little bit too quick to have the successive promotions, but that was a night that was not remembered fondly from Darlington fans, and people are still angry about that challenge now, which we should probably let it go. But yeah, that was the culmination of that season, and we had to regroup and go again the year after.
And to be fair, that Darlington did just that, didn't they? Really go again, finish second again, and then Bamber Bridge in the final, 2-0 win.
Yeah, very nervous. I mean, I remember a couple of memories of that. First of all, the semi-final, I think, was against Spennymoor, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yep,
Spennymoor were possibly the better team on the night. They were leading in the game. Callum Griffiths, who went on to play for Darlington, still plays for Darlington now, hit the crossbar from the halfway line, which would have, I think, put Spennymoor 2 up, if I remember rightly. And then we scored 2 really late goals to win it. So that was a really euphoric evening. And then getting a ticket for the playoff final was hard. I mean, I remember we were selling tickets out of Blackwell Meadows, which is the home now, and I remember the traffic on Grange Road being at a standstill because people couldn't get in and out to buy tickets.
Wow.
So you could have sold out many times over. It was a tense day, but Darlington had the quality to get through. It was, I know it was Nathan Cartman who scored the first goal in front of the tin shed. Flick on from Alan White, who was a big local lad. I think he was in his 3rd or 4th spell as a Darlington player. Won a flick on from a long throw in. Nathan Cartman, who was a popular figure, put it in, swept it home from close range. And then Graham Armstrong, I think, got the second goal again in front of that tin shed.
Yep. It's a very good memory.
Yeah, fantastic day, amazing experience. I was lucky enough to commentate on that one, so that was the first bit of sort of success that I'd been able to commentate on as well, and it was a great day, a big party atmosphere, the fans on the pitch afterwards, and again we were still probably at the stage there where players and fans we were still at a level where it felt really intimate and close. So yeah, really special season, really special days, special season.
The winners then that season, where Darlington won the playoffs, was Salford won the league, and the season after we'd see that script flipped, wouldn't we, with Darlington winning the league, 106 points. Oh, was it 106? 104 points, scoring 106 goals. I apologise. Fantastic season, that one. Obviously,
amazing season. Possibly, I'd say, if you were to do a straw poll of Darlington fans since 2012 and ask them the favourite season, I don't know whether people would plumb for the first season in the Northern League or that season. Some really memorable games. I mean, the 4-3 victory at Salford. I think we beat Salford home and away. I remember Liam Hardy scored in the home game. I think we beat them at home, and then we went away, I don't know, end of January time, something like that. We took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fans down. We were getting beat, I think 3-1, and came back and won it. Nathan Cartman, I think, came off the bench. I think he came off the bench and got 1 or 2. I know my memory's failing, but certainly got the winner. And that was a bitter blow for Salford, and from that point on, Darlington were faced with having to play, I don't remember the number, but a ridiculous amount of games. We were playing 3 times a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. We had to play 2 games, I think, at Spennymoor Town's ground because our pitch still wasn't fit. So that was the home fixture. I think Grantham was one of them that we played close in, but the season culminated in a victory in the penultimate game of the season at Whitby Town, and Darlington took, again, I don't know if they took 1,000 fans or whatever they took, but they absolutely dominated the place. I've got my personal memory of that one, bearing in mind that was a really tight, tense, big game. I was in Shanghai. I was working in Shanghai. I had the time difference against me. I had a big presentation to give early the next morning, which I think from memory was a Friday morning, I think, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I got an early night and set an alarm for 5 a.m, realising that would be, it might be 4 a.m. even, to listen to the commentary, because I wanted to, I didn't want to stay up all night. That would have been pushing it too far with the jet lag. Mm-hmm. So I waited up, and when I turned the radio on in the middle of the night in Shanghai, I heard them say that it was 5-0. I think there was only maybe 30 minutes down or something like that, and I thought I was hallucinating. I honestly thought it was either some elaborate wind-up, or I just misheard it and I was, delusional. But it was true. We were 5-0 up after 20 minutes or something like that. And for fans who were there, it's probably one of the most memorable nights of their Darlington supporting career, I would say.
And in the end, finished 7-1.
I think it did, yeah. I think it finished 7-1, something like that. Again, great scenes at the end. I wasn't there myself, but looked magnificent event.
So then we come on to where Darlington are now, National League North.
Mhm.
That first season, 5th place, but not getting the playoffs. So the issue was to do with the stadium, wasn't it, at the time?
It was to do specifically. It was to do with the number of seats. So we had, I think it was an error. We'd moved to Blackwell Meadows the year before. We had enough seats for the level that we were at, but I think if I get this accurately, the rules are you need to have the ground grading for one level up, for the next level up, and that required that we needed twice as many seats as we had, and it was an oversight, I think. By the